Who knows what evil darkness lurks in the night? This is Fun and Clown Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. Right after Halloween here, when the Halloween spirit's getting cold, the leaves are falling, and if you know, why was I talking like? Well, there's only a couple comedians who ever did that, and we're here to discuss one of them, Mr. Bobcat Goldthwait. November 2nd, 2021. This is episode 130, and the guy met his bones on the Boston comedy scene, which is the same comedy scene that we're bringing you Funny Like Clown podcast from. So what a great comedy scene it is. Great mecca, as always. Today's episode is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce with a spicy, sweet, savory taste at game time. Grab some G Vegas Buffalo Sauce, and it's tangy on your tongue. See, and if it's tangy on your tongue, then it's kind of like a couple ex-girlfriends I've had. All right, now. Bobcat Goldthwait, man. Yeah, like I said, Boston guy, born in New York. Little did I know. I thought he was a Boston native. Little did I know he grew up in New York City, our arch rival Yankees. Let's hope he's not a Yankee fan. I don't know. But hey, he's a Boston fan now, because if you're around here, you're a Boston guy. And yeah, we love Tom Brady. All right. A lot of the country hates Tom Brady. Hey, we like him. But hey, you know what we have in common with the rest of the country? We all love to laugh. We love comedy. This guy is known for what's called black humor, okay? Which we know about blue humor. If you're in the comedy world, if you work blue, that means you work dirty, and a lot of places won't book you if you work dirty. If you work clean, you always work. That's a known thing in comedy. And I'm not a filthy comic, but I choose some off subjects, which probably cost me some work, but that's what I grew up loving to listen to. So yeah, I could clean up my act and do clean comedy, but then I wouldn't be doing what I love to do, even though I work more. So I'd rather work less and do what I love to do than sell out to the industry and become what they want you to become rather than what you want it to be. And well, as I said, blue comedy is known for working dirty. Bobcat Goldthwait, he's in this thing called black comedy, which is known as kind of a dark humor, taking subjects that are supposed to be taken seriously and making fun of them, laughing about things you're not supposed to laugh about, subjects. I remember when I took a comedy class, they said the three things in comedy you never touch are race, religion, and disease, because you can be called a racist quick, and there's nothing funny about that. Disease, you can be a prick if you make fun of someone who's dying of something. And religion, of course, that's a very sensitive subject because the world's based on that. So, you can offend people very easily by hitting those subjects. And when you're in comedy and you got a room of people, you want them to laugh. You don't want to offend them. Where if you're doing black comedy, you take these subjects and you tackle them anyway. And, you kind of throw the audience into shock and hope you don't alienate them and they come around to your way of thinking. I guess I got to bring up Sam Kinison because his bit on world hunger, where everybody was saying, "Hey, feed the homeless, feed the homeless." You got to help them out. He's like, and Sam Kinison came out with the view of, "Hey, you know what? Instead of traveling 1,000 miles and bringing them food, why don't we go out to the desert and friggin' bring them all back here where the food is?" And it was hilarious, just his twist. Not that he's trying to say don't feed the homeless, but there's got to be an easier way to do it. So he tackled a subject, which you were supposed to take seriously, but he made it humorous. And Bobcat, he was known for doing the same thing. And I remember I saw a young Bobcat, and he said, when he's at the Ding Ho, which is, the club here in Cambridge that he started out at, he said, my only goal in comedy was to, like, when I got up there on stage, I wanted to fuck your head up enough where you were still thinking about me the next day at work, And I remember when I did comedy, it was graduation night after I took a comedy class, and I did the same thing. I was like, half the audience loved me, the other half didn't know what to make about me. But I said, the other comics who were on the show, they got laughs that night. But a few days later, all right, it was a great night of comedy, but could you remember any of the jokes they told you? Probably not. It was a one-night thing where I fucked their head up so bad. Years later, man, fucked up dude that night we went to graduation. So that's what he tried to do. He tried to shock himself into your memory where you'd never forget the guy, which is just a genius move. Let's see. He started out getting noticed by his stand-up specials, An Evening with Bobcat Goldthwait, Share the Warmth, and Is He Like That All the Time? Those specials led to what I remember, or most of us remember him from, his most prominent role in the Police Academy franchise. That was where he really, I mean, he was on top of the comedy scene when he first came out in that. It was so funny what he was doing in that movie. And what a legendary franchise that was. Just, who was it? Steve Gutenberg, I think he was the star, which, I mean, he didn't really go on to do much after that, but just, oh my gosh, just the Bubba Smith was in there, and Michael Winslow with all the noises, and of course Bobcat, and just all the legends that came out of that movie. It's just a great thing right there. Let's see. He's a regular on the quiz radio show Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. Let's see. He's written and directed quite a few things. 1991, Shakes the Clown, which he also starred in. 2006 is Sleeping Dogs. 2009, The World's Greatest Dad, which I'm a big father's rights activist, so that's a great one right there. The World's Greatest. Be a good dad, whatever you do. 2011, God Bless America. 2013, Willow Creek. He's helped out on episodes of The Chappelle Show, The Larry Sanders Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, 2004 to 2007. Maron from 2003 to 15. Also some stand-up specials he helped produce. Patton Oswalt, Tragedy Plus Comedy Equals Time. Yeah, just a guy who keeps on working, man. And we've mentioned this one before, voice work. If you're in comedy, man, voice work, oh, that'll keep you in the game forever. And who wouldn't want to be remembered in a great cartoon? I see they came out with a new trailer. They got a new Buzz Lightyear. It's like 3D, and not in 3D. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like animation, but it makes you look like a real person animation. And they got, I mean, how many different directions have they gone with Buzz Lightyear? What a just a creative character from the Toy Story franchise, which has just spun off like cartoons and this and that. And you can be typecast, but when you're only using your voice, it's tough to get typecast as a voice. So if you can do some voice work, what a genius way to keep your career going. Capital Critters, he did some voice work, 1992 to 95. Hercules, the animated series, 1997. 1988 to 1992, the actual Hercules in 1997. Then the animated series, 98 and 99. His actual name, okay, which obviously nobody named the kid Bobcat. I mean, which I know what Eddie Van Halen's kid's name is Wolfgang, so it does happen, but it didn't happen in this case. Robert Francis Goldthwait. So actually it's Robert. Who knew that? But we all knew him from Bobcat, and we'll get into why. As we mentioned, born in Syracuse, New York. He enjoyed making his friends laugh, and he decided he wanted to be a comedian early on because he enjoyed the feeling of making his friends laugh. He'd often get to just his friends together and do performances for them over time, from time to time. Then he saw an ad for an open mic featuring Barry Crimmins, who, of course, is the legendary guy who started comedy, the Ding Ho Comedy Club, took it over and here in Cambridge, Mass, and launched the careers of most of the famous comedians that came out of Boston here. So it's such a remembered place. But so he answered the ad for Barry Crimmins. He went over there and made some friends. They created a group called the Generic Comics. And they nicknamed him and a friend. One of them was Tomcat, and the other one was Bobcat. And of course, we remember the one Bobcat. Did that for a while. Then he went solo. He had a comedy album called Meet Bob, which I think in my studio, I think I still have a cassette tape of Meet Bob. So I did have that one. And that launched into a whole new, the comedy audience. He opened for Nirvana, which I guess Kurt Cobain was a big fan of his, and he appeared in some videos for the band, and I guess he established a friendship with Kurt Cobain over the years too. So, which is half the fun of comedy, because I'll tell you, I've had a lot of fun. I've met some great people. I've made some great friendships. Made a lot of enemies too. It's not all peanut butter and jelly, but yeah, it's half the part though. Is just the meeting the people and deciding the good from the bad and having fun times with the good ones and talking about the bad times and half the stories. Sometimes the road trips to some of these gigs and the stories that are told are sometimes funnier than the actual gigs themselves. Let's see. He was on Comedy Central's Shorties Watching Shorties. Let's see. I know he was a good friend with this guy. He appeared on the same bill as Robin Williams a lot of the time. And they didn't appear together as a team or nothing like that. And they used like false names or something to appear in each other's shows, and they really got crazy about the whole thing. But I know tragically, when Robin Williams passed away, Bobcat was one of his closest friends, and Bobcat had some gory details about how it all went down, about how Robin was starting to forget things, and it was starting to get to a dark time in his life, and that's kind of why it happened. And which you see your friend like that. I mean, that's had to be tough on Bob, because I know my best friend committed suicide. He had a problem with alcoholism. He couldn't beat it. And, it's tough to see, someone who was once a proud man or friend of yours, a confidant, and, just to fall apart like that. And it's like, Bobcat, he said he didn't want to say too much about it because you don't want to tarnish the image of Robin Williams. But yeah, to see something like that, man, those are some dark times. And I guess that's why you go to comedy, to try and get some laughter in your life to make up for the misery, I guess, right? Let's see, he was in some movies. One Crazy Summer, Burglar, which I guess with Whoopi Goldberg there. I remember a friend of mine, Carl LeBove, he was in that too. So some star power in that one. Scrooged, I do remember, I think Sam Kinison was supposed to get the role in Scrooged, and for whatever reason, they couldn't get Sam, so they went and got Bob. He was in Hot to Trot. I remember that was a movie about the talking horse there. And the big thing, he kept saying it was not Mr. Ed. Okay, just because it's a talking horse, it's not Mr. Ed. It's not about him. But same premise, I guess you'd say a talking horse is Mr. Ed. But also credited as a writer in the Railroad Murders. So and in addition to just starring and directing and filming and producing, he also did some writing work, which is always good when you're credited, when somebody wants to read what you got to write. Here's what I didn't know. As much as I watched MTV back in the day, I should know this, but he was in some Twisted Sister videos. And if I saw him, I probably remember him. I probably seen him and just forgot about it. But Twisted Sister video, Leader of the Pack, Be Cruel to Yourself, and Come Out and Play. So back then, if you were in a music video, you were on MTV, that was the top of the game. Nowadays, it's like no big deal. But back then, oh my God, that was the number one watch show for teenagers back then. If you got on MTV and were in a video, everybody was seeing you. Let's see. He was on the Ben Stiller show. There's a guy, Ben Stiller, who just made a career off of one line. Bueller, Bueller, Bueller. That's it. That's all he had to say was Bueller a few times and launched a career. Talk about parlaying that. But did have a popular show. Hey, if you want it, you were at the top of your game, and Bobcat was on it. Appeared in an episode of Married with Children. I think he was a relative of Peg's who showed up and dumped a bunch of kids with the Bundys or something like that. And I can't say, geez, I did watch a lot of that. I don't remember seeing that episode. Or maybe I did. It was, again, I think it was one I seen this back in the day, and then you forgot about it. But boy, what a popular show that was, Married with Children. Yeah, if you were on there, again, the top of your game. I guess they call this controversial, and I guess I remember when Andrew Dice Clay was on the Arsenio Hall show, he actually broke down and cried, and some said it was staged, and some said it was real, where everybody was giving Dice shit because he was so dirty, and he said, if you can't take a joke, it's comedy. He's like, what's the well, I think they said, well, what's the difference between you and Nazis? They're Nazis and I'm a comedian. There's the difference right there. Okay. So they're trying to be hateful and I'm just trying to make you laugh. There's the difference. And I guess Bobcat, he had a lot of these controversial moments on late night TV where you'd have to say to yourself, I think most of it was planned, but if you're the average fan watching it, you're thinking, oh, this guy's nuts. But the next day, everybody's talking about you. And they said that about the Comedy Central roast too, that they give you subjects you're not supposed to talk about. And a lot of the comics, they stick to it. And they don't hit those subjects because you're not supposed to. Some of them break the rules and they talk about the subject and get such a big laugh that they're the ones that's remembered most for breaking the rules, because they dared to go where the other ones wouldn't go. And I've had a few nights like that where I wouldn't even say the joke on a podcast, but I go, well, fuck it, it's a podcast, say whatever you want. I was at an open mic one night, And I was the closing comic. I was the headliner, and there were a bunch of young comics ahead of me, and I was watching them, and they're all good. There was this young one black kid, and he got up there, and he just kept telling jokes, and he's like, "You're gonna remember that joke because I'm a bitch ass nigga." Okay, then he tell another joke. You remember that because I'm a bitch ass nigga. Every joke. That was his ending to every joke there, and I'm one bitch ass nigga. He says so. After he got done, there was a few other comics got forgot about. I got up there, my opening line, I said, coming on last at an event like this is tough because some of the jokes I was going to tell, the other comedians have already touched. See, I was going to come up here and say, good evening, I'm Dennis Wirth, and I'm one bitch ass nigger. Now, I took a risk there, okay, because that's a pretty racist joke, which, I mean, if you hear it, it sounds weird. If you were there, you would understand the humor. The place erupted in friggin' laughter. Okay, I mean, I took a chance. I could have bombed. I could have alienated the crowd right off the bat. I took the chance, and instead, I brought the fucking room down with laughter. Because if you were there after the kid had said it so much, everybody was thinking it, but I had the guts to say it, and sometimes those are the best moments right there. So. Bobcat, he took some chances here. He was on Conan O'Brien where he started flipping out. He started tossing the furniture over and running into the audience and really making a bad scene. And you kind of like, we don't know what to do. On the Arsenio Hall show, I guess he was upset the show was getting canceled because it was some part of the Late Night Wars, which we did a Funny on Clown podcast. We did a bunch of episodes on the Late Night Comedy Wars. But he was upset the show was getting canceled, and it was because Letterman was moving from one network to another, and Paramount was behind the big controversy. So he spray painted "Paramount sucks" in the studio while he was flipping out and screaming. They actually had to call security, and Arsenio had to try to calm him down. But it got remembered where regular parents probably wouldn't. Probably the biggest flip out that got most remembered was he was on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, where he actually set the guest chair on fire, and which was a funny skit. He was trying to be funny, and it led to this big thing where he had to do commercials about fire awareness as part of his probation. He he's actually registered as an arsonist because of it. I mean, just the shit that this guy had to deal with for trying to be funny and what it turned into. But I guess him setting the chair on fire, it actually turned into the plot for one episode of the Larry Sanders Show, and it turned fire safety into this big comedic thing, which led to that persona being on Mad TV, if you remember that series. So if you ever want to know where Jim Carrey's character Fire Marshal Bob came from, well, it came from fucking Bobcat Goldthwait setting Jay Leno's chair on fire. And I do remember that back in the day and making the fucking news and shit. It's like a comedy routine. They were like so taken too seriously because it has to do with fire. But hey, that's what got him remembered. He took the chance, and the next day he's all over the news for it. So sometimes taking the chance can pay off, and sometimes it don't. He did some later work. He was on 4 episodes of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and I have heard of that show. And gosh, I should go watch some of those episodes. I remember Space Ghost as a kid. I mean, I never knew they brought it back as this big, like, I think it was a roundtable discussion or something. But to bring that back was some crazy work. Again, some voice work. The animated series Lilo and Stitch, Buzz Lightyear as Star Command. We already mentioned him. Hollywood Squares he was on. One of the top podcasts out there, I'd probably go 1 and 2, the Adam Carolla podcast, which him and Joe Rogan are probably battling for the 1 and 2 spot there, number 1 comedy podcasts out there anyway. Real Time with Bill Maher, which is kind of funny. It's kind of a political show to go from Police Academy, crazy guy, to like not doing like political shows. That's later on in his career could show you how you mature as a comic over the years. When you're young, you're the badass comic. When you're old, you're on like political shows now. Adventure Time he was on. I think it was a kids series. He did some voice work in Skylanders, and also Skylanders, the Netflix series. And I guess, what can I say about him? He's a Boston guy, and I've said this about Dane Cook before. When I was a comic, I played a lot of these venues, and you hop on them, and when like comics like Bobcat Goldthwait and Dane Cook were young comics, they hit the exact same stage they were standing on if you were standing on. It's just a really cool feeling, and to know he's a Boston guy. And I recently look it up. I went up and I did a urban road trip, and I explored the former site of the Ding Ho Comedy Club we were talking about, where guys like Bobcat came up, where Barry Crimmins ran it. And I guess I got to mention this one because a friend of mine recommended, that I watch this, and being a Boston comedian, I had to, because Barry Crimmins is the legendary guy who, like I said, ran the Ding Ho. And it's called Call Me Lucky. And I went there expecting it to be this comedy thing, and little did I know it was directed by Bobcat, and being we talked about the black humor he does. This was like a really, really dark movie into like child abuse and stuff like that, which I guess Barry was a victim of when he was young. So I went there expecting comedy. Instead, this just shocked into my head that you think everybody in the world's good, and some people have some darkness, but just how dark some people can actually be. And I could see the black comedy they're talking about, just the darkness that got shocked into my head. I'll be having freaking nightmares about this shit for years, just thinking about this movie. But man, it made you think. And if you can get people thinking in comedy, that's half the thing. How do you get remembered? It's like Bobcat said, you want to shock it in where, a week later they're thinking about you at work, where they've forgotten about every other comic. They're still remembering you because you fucked up their head so bad. So work for him. And, you take the chances in comedy. Maybe it can work for you. Maybe it can work in life. And I think Joan Rivers once said, I made a living on saying what everybody else was thinking. And there it is in a nutshell right there. So what a great career by Bobcat Goldthwait. I know the Red Sox, they recently opened a minor league team, which I guess is up in Worcester now. And I know Bobcat, he went there. I think it was open tonight. They had this big thing where Pedro, the legendary pitcher, came out, and they had some comedy, and Bobcat came up and did some stuff there. So for the Red Sox minor league system, and opening night, and that's something every Boston comedian would just dream of doing right there. So the legends, the Bobcat Goldthwaits, the Lenny Clarks, the Stephen Wrights, the Jay Leno's, the Paula Poundstones, all out of Boston, and this guy was in the mix. Hey, we're in the mix for podcasts, funny podcasts, because I got to say, I don't know how many comedy podcasts are coming out of New England, but I would put Funny.com podcast in the top two, because, hey, we're taking on the history of comedy. We've had on some great freaking guests, and I got some more guests coming up, because my movie this weekend, hopefully we're shooting the final scenes. The World Needs a New Superhero, coming out on Amazon Prime, and I'm going to start hopefully I'm going to get the director and some of the cast on there and start promoting that. So we're going to be having some guests again, so stay tuned. That's coming to you soon, maybe as soon as next week, who knows, maybe the week after, we'll see. Anyway, this is Funny.com podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. Go out and shock somebody with a joke tomorrow. Make them laugh, because laughter is the best medicine. Good night.